First we got prison orders, then we got world orders, and now we got flying whale nation orders. Yeah, this is apparently a thing now.
Stand up! Vanguard!
Hey Cardfighters, welcome back to another Cardfight update, and today we've got some more reveals for the upcoming Lyrical Monasterio set, which rounds up most things around the upcoming trial deck for the nation. But on top of it, we also got some more confirmation and news about the upcoming releases for the English format, as apparently we're gonna get some more delays in the general long term. Now, you might already know from the previous Cardfight update that we talked about some of the new release schedule for the upcoming Lyrical Monasterio set, as well as the upcoming revival selection. But now we also know about the actual release date for set 3 in the English format. So to give a complete summarize, let's go over the entire release schedule for English from the upcoming set 2, all the way down to set 3. So, of course, set 2 is going to be released next week. The sneaks are happening this weekend, so if you're going to participate in the sneak, you probably already knew about this. Then for the revival selection set, this is going to be delayed for, I believe, a week till September the 10th. And then for the Lyrical Monasterio's products, we got the trial deck, which is going to happen on October the 8th. And then the set will be on October the 15th. Both of these products will be delayed by 2 weeks. Now, so far, the clan collection isn't going to be delayed. Their release schedule is still on the same date, as they are still scheduled for October the 22nd. Now, for November, we don't have anything planned, but set 3 is going to be released on December the 10th. So there will be quite a big gap between set 2 and set 3. Now, of course, we're going to have Lyrical Monasterio in between, which will probably shift the meta a little bit. And then the rest of the set, Revival and V, are just extra supplementary sets. But if you only play standard Overdress version, then between Lyrical Monasterio and set 3, there's quite a big gap, about a 5 to 6 week, I think so, or maybe even more. But it also means that once we get set 3, only 2 weeks later, Japan is going to get set 4. So we're going to get a bit behind Japan here. But then what we also know is that in January next year, we're going to get Token Rumbu. We don't have the exact date yet, but I assume maybe somewhere at the beginning of January. And then set 4 is probably scheduled somewhere at the end of January or early February. That's at least what I'm suspecting here. Now, if you're wondering what's the reason why these delays are happening here right now, it has basically to do with COVID. It's not necessarily the shipping issues that's somewhat the results of these delays, but mainly because the COVID cases in the country that has the factory, basically where the cards are being produced, the COVID cases in that country are spiking at the moment, which basically means that productions is gonna suffer here a little bit. So either they are forced to put this schedule a bit back, or Bushiroad is putting them back just as a preemptive cost that they're taking to mitigate the issues that might come if they try to push this product still on the usual schedule with potential lack of production. So far, I don't know if this is gonna persist for a while after December with maybe set 4 and beyond, but I assume that once these COVID cases will drop, then probably the schedule will resume as normal, and maybe Bushiroad is going to try to do a catch-up here, that maybe some sets will be pushed a bit sooner together, so we might be more on track with Japan. At least that's what I hope, that we be more optimistic. If we don't get the Shaman King collab set and the Monster Strikes collab set, then maybe they can use those gaps a bit to close the gap with Japan. Now, of course, this isn't the only thing that we're going to talk about, because we got a couple of more card reveals for Lyrical Monasterio as well, as they are from the trial deck. Now, we already discussed the main right line and one of the support cards in the previous Cardfight update, so this is basically an add-on addition to that, as we now have more cards of the trial deck itself. And one of those cards is a grade 2 in the likes of Faintly Slump Apel, and she has the ability, although when this unit is placed on the rearguard circle, cost counter plus 1, and this unit gets power plus 10k until the end of turn. Now, if you recall, the right line, or mainly the grade 3 of the right line, allows us to bounce back cards from the field to our hand, and then if we Persona Road, we can then call 2 new cards to the field in not the same row. So we can probably call an entire column, or maybe a unit in the front row here, and maybe a unit in the back row somebody else. So this allows us to achieve multi-attacks, but those multi-attacks will probably sacrifice power, because either we already boosted or we cannot create good columns, so you want to have ways to increase the power on those new attacks. this is a nice way to basically get a beefy unit onto the field. Now, yes, she gets an extra 10k power, which is nice, but she is an 8k base, which is a bit awkward, but 8 plus 10 is 18. That does still hit a good magic number, so I think it's okay in a combo potential here. You're probably not going to call her in the first couple of waves, but she will mainly, I think, be a card that you keep in your hand and then call onto the board once you go into those multi-attacks. We also have that weird grade 1 with a 3k base power that allows us to extend these combos to potentially 5 attacks if we can clear the front row. This is also maybe a good card that we can call to the other side without a potential booster, because she plus the 3k doesn't really make a magic number. It's 21, which is kind of awkward, so she on her own as just an 18k attacker, or maybe a booster behind her that can be a 10k booster, is actually pretty decent. So she opens up the playability here. Now, Counterblast is a bit of an issue in my eyes, because counterblasting for power is something I always regard as bad, but as we've seen with the other cards in the starter deck or the trial deck, they don't really use any counterblast. This is the first counterblast skill that we saw, because the right line grade 3 uses soul, and the grade 1 that allows us to multi-attack even further is also soul. So no counterblast cost as of yet, so this can be a nice way to use, at least get usage or benefit from the open counterblast that we have access to. But as you're going to see in a second, we might have some better usage for that counterblast as well in the starter deck or in the trial deck alone. Now, if we move on, we see the supporting grade 3, which honestly, in my opinion, is actually a lot better than the grade 2. As we've got Energetic School Attendance Kelfi. And Kelfi has the ability, although when this unit is placed on the rearguard circle, this unit gets power plus 10k until the end of turn. It's basically the same skill as the grade 2, but it's free. Now, keep in mind, she is a 10k base, so she doesn't really become a good 23k beater on her own. But with the 3k grade 1, she becomes that. So she can actually be the unit that's going to be called in front of the grade 1, that then makes a good solid magic number in one column, and then you can call another good beater on this side that potentially still have that booster ready, so you can actually make some good columns. And yes, she is only 10k, but in that potential, I think it's actually pretty fine, because she is basically a grade 2. That cannot intercept, in my eyes. But you don't really mind for that, because she's basically there for combo potential. You want to use her to be aggressive. You can even use her to call her from hand onto the field in your main phase. She becomes a solid 20k attacker, and then you can bounce her back and call her again for another 20k base attacker, which is great. And if you went first, that happens against an opponent that's still at grade 3, so that's actually pretty good. Now, if you go first, you cannot persona right, so you probably cannot do it with the main grade 3, but if we get other cards that can bounce back and call new units during the battle phase, it's still an option that is available. So I think this is something that should be overlooked, as I can see future applications to this card, because it's basically a different grade 2 in my eyes. But now we get to the actual interesting stuff. Like, I think interesting is the best description of this particular card, because this is something I didn't expect. This was the last thing I would expect that we would see for the nation, for Lyrical Monastery, or even for Vanguard or for Overdress in general, because the last card that has been revealed for the starter deck or trial deck so far is a new order card. Or should I say, a new set order card. Because we got this grade 3 set order, special live tour around the world, exclamation mark. This set order has the ability, act in order zone. Once a turn, cost Counterblast 2, choose one of your Vanguards, and until the end of turn, it gets continuous Vanguard circle. All of your rearguards get power plus 5k. Yeah, this is actually really good, I'm not gonna lie. No cap here, this is actually a really good card. What I like about this order card is that, unlike the Imprison card, which is basically a mechanical thing that allows you to do your whole mechanic of the deck, and unlike the World Order cards, which are basically one-off skills that then also are requirements to activate your skills in the Orvis deck, this basically takes the set order mechanic and puts a different twist on it. It basically turns in a new way where you can turn cards in your hand into passive abilities to your Vanguard or to other units. Because what this card effectively is, it's a discard from hand that gives you current Vanguard a new ability and all other subsequent Vanguards that you're gonna ride the rest of the game. Because this is actually another ability that you're going to give to your Vanguard. Yes, it's an ability you need to use from your order zone, and you have that act ability that then turns into a continuous that is given to your Vanguard circle, but basically the act ability in itself is also can be regarded as a new ability that you're going to give to your Vanguard that's going to stay there, which is actually really nice because this gives more flexibility and more options where you can basically customize your Vanguard and your main power plays here, which is a very interesting thing that we never really saw being experimented with in Vanguard ever before. So this already in its own is already really interesting, but we're gonna get back to that particular aspect after we discuss this particular skill in question itself, because we can go on about this world order in general, but let's first take a look at how this skill interacts nicely with the right line of this trial deck. So this ability gives for 2 counterblasts our Vanguard ability where all rearguard continuously during the entire turn and gonna get plus 5k power. This is effectively a pseudo Persona Ride, which is ridiculously good. It gives 10k power to your side columns, and then 5k power to your Vanguard column if you have an entire filled field, which is actually really good for 2 counterblasts. Yes, 2 counterblasts is kind of heavy, but as we already explained, the starter deck doesn't really use any counterblasts right now, and I think this use of counterblasts is a lot better than the grade 2 for the main reason that we can multi-attack. If we can use this skill during a Persona Ride turn, keep in mind, those units that we're going to bounce and call back to the field will also get the passive power. So it's basically the same as a Persona Ride ability. And this is the type of effect that I honestly would have seen on the Phantasmagory Magician Curtis for Barrow Magnus that also used 2 counterblasts to give your front row 5k power. But the issue with that grade 3 is that it just gives the units that are currently on the field the 5k power, and once they go into the soul, you call units out, they don't get the power. Whereas this thing is a continuous passive ability given to the Vanguard, so it stays there, which is really nicely with the multi-attack potential, and now suddenly the lower base power doesn't really matter all too much. And if we calculate this together with the Persona Ride turn, keep in mind, your front row units will have an additional passive 15k power. And if they're gonna be boosted by whatever is behind them, those boosters also has the extra 5k power. And as soon as we can bounce back an entire column with the right line, grade 3, we can call an entire column back, and that entire column will have a passive plus 10k power, plus the 10k power of the right line. That's 20k power there. Those are quite beefy numbers already without looking at the skills of the units themselves that we're gonna call to the field, because remember, the grade 2 and the grade 3 have a skill that can get an additional 10k power once they're placed onto the field. We're staring down at a lot of power here, so I'm liking the starter deck right now, and I see a lot of potential in this particular set order card in question, which is actually really interesting. Now, keep in mind, of the starter deck, there are only 2 cards that are yet to be revealed. Probably a grade 2 and a grade 1. Now, some speculate that they're going to be vanilla cards or not really that instrumental. I think one of them are going to be a perfect guard for the grade 1, and then the grade 2 is going to be vanilla. However, seeing as it's a trial deck and not a starter deck, I think it's less likely that the grade 2 or the grade 3 other card is going to be a vanilla. I think there's a high chance that it actually will have a skill. Now, the grade 1 probably is a perfect guard. So there's one unknown card that can be something or can be nothing. So either this is the entire starter deck that we know, and we know what the playstyle is of the main right line, and next up we're going to see what the main deck cards are going to do, but that's up in the air to see what the last 2 unknown cards are going to be, because the rest of the grade 0s are the triggers and the over trigger that we already know. It's going to have the Cray Elemental over trigger in the trial deck. Now I want to go back to this new set order card. So we already discussed about that this is a new design approach that Bushiroad is going to take, where basically this is the same thing as giving your Vanguards new skills. This is really interesting because I hope we're going to see more like this either in Lyrical Monasterio or in future sets as well, because this is a bit different than the just spell type order cards that we've seen in other nations so far. Most of the order cards are just spells. We use them, they're gone, and we're done. Alchemagic or Zorga can abuse this a little bit more with the whole Alchemagic mechanic, but if it's not a set order card, it doesn't really do anything besides it, and most of the set order cards are just there for mechanical purpose. This is something completely different, and this feels to me more like a continuous spell or a field spell that actually does something in the game. And now they can also experiment this with, instead of giving abilities to the Vanguard, they might give passive abilities to the rearguards. Either this can be an increase of power, maybe protection, or just actual skills given to certain units. And they can just give it a field sprite thing, or they can say only grade 1s, or maybe only grade 1s in the back row, or only grade 2s in the front row, and do something unique with this. And if this is going to be a thing, we might see some counter action as well. So we might see skills or units in the future that interact with your opponent's world order. Maybe we get a unit that on attack, on hit, can remove one of your opponent's world orders to counterplay their strategies. Now against something like this basically shuts down one of their extra skills. Against Orpheus, you could potentially screw them over of having Abyssal Dark Knight. Now speaking for the Orpheus player, they can counterplay this as well because they usually play an extra amount of world orders, and every single turn they can replenish it if they draw into those cards, thus giving more value to those world orders. Because usually for an Orpheus player, the moment that they already have Abyssal Dark Knight, a lot of the value behind the orders are diminished unless they can get actual value behind the draw, the retire, or of creating the extra token. And for the Seraph Snow variant with Prison, removing their Prison is an interesting thing because I don't think there are actual rules for this, but I assume if you remove the prison, all the cards that are still stuck in the prison will probably go to the drop zone. So that might sound like a good thing for the player that's playing against the prison deck, but keep in mind, if there's still cards in there that have actual value for you on the board, by doing this, you're basically screwing yourself out of the potential of ever getting access to those cards if you don't have drop zone recursions. So it's an interesting thing, and it also means that prison players now have to think about maybe running extra amount of prisons to do something about this if this will ever be a thing. So I think this opens up a very interesting design approach for future cards as well as design roads they can take, and I love to see more like this. This is really interesting and I'm liking this design so far. So yeah, I don't know how you did it, Bushiroad, but you really have made me locked in Lyrical Monasterio because things are looking very interesting right now, and I hope it also speaks for you guys because these are the stuff that I like to see with future sets as well, and I hope we're going to see more of this interesting card design and overdress in the long run. But that is basically everything for me today. Let me know in the comments down below what you guys think of these new reveals. Are you as excited about the prospect of this new mechanic for overdress with this new type of set order card that encompasses more like spells, continuous spells, or field spells that have longevity impact on the game, besides just having a mechanical interaction like Prison and the World Orders? Let me know all those thoughts in the comment section down below. And also, what's your thoughts about the new release schedule? Because as it's look right now, we're gonna get a set next week, then a month without a set, then one set in September, then 4 sets in October, nothing in November, and then 1 in December, and probably 1 in January and 1 in February, or maybe even 2 in January. I'm very curious on what your opinion about this is. Does it impact you at all? Maybe you're happy with the delays. Personally, I'm kind of happy with the delays a little bit because my wallet can save up a little bit with these 2 months extra saving here and there. So I'm fine with it as long as in the long run, after somewhere next year, they're gonna catch up a little bit, but that's something for a different video. Let me know all your thoughts in the comment section down below. As always, this video has been brought to you by our lovely patrons over at patreon.com/VanguardInsider. You guys are amazing. If you do want to support the channel or everything that's happening on the channel, you can simply go to patreon.com/VanguardInsider and become a patron today. But with that said, I've been Mr. Time Leap, and I see you guys in the next one!